Hello and welcome to the show as we have a look at the results around Australia. Kevin Brogan will join me in just a moment and he'll tell us that we're seeing strong clearance off fewer auction numbers as buyer demand strengthens. The market will take you inside a beautiful harbourfront property as our top sale around Australia and others as well. Back in just a moment.
Did you know you can save up to 70% on your staff costs by outsourcing the low-value, repeatable tasks, so your team can focus on growing your business? Beepo is an outsourcing provider focused on the real estate industry. With an English-speaking, tertiary qualified and fully trained team in the Philippines, Beepo will give your business the boost it needs to start growing and returning value to you. For more information, visit beepo.com.au.
Kevin Brogan from CoreLogic joins me. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. How are you going?
Wonderful, my friend. Firstly, we'll bring up the preliminary, it's very hard to say on Monday, the preliminary results. A great result out of Sydney, Kevin.
Oh, yeah. Look, I mean, that's a really high prelim clearance rate there, 78%. As you mentioned, very subdued activity compared to both last week and last year. There were 552 auctions, so 200 fewer this week, very much down to winter and the start of the summer holidays.
Yeah, we'll actually bring up side by side. We'll just bring up the graphic that we call 1A. That compares the clearance rates this time last year and the total number of auctions, which you're touching on there. And we see last year the clearance out of Sydney was 50.1%.
Yeah, look, barely got over 50% this time last year. Obviously, significant headwinds facing the industry at this time last year, and also the volume of auctions hadn't really adjusted to the lower demand, and so we saw that impacted in the clearance rates.
Melbourne at 70.3 compared to 56.1 last year. Brisbane at 40%. That's pretty good.
Oh, look, actually, both of those. I mean, Melbourne has been hovering around the 70% mark, but not quite reaching it for the last couple of weeks. So, a minor milestone achieved for them. And that's the second highest prelim clearance for Brisbane this year at 40%.
We did say that we'd have a close look at Canberra this week as well. That clearance at 46%, it's okay, but it's not as high as what I would have thought it's going to be, Kevin.
No, look, last week we saw the clearance rate in Canberra just tick up a little. This week, obviously, it's gone back to where we've seen it for the last few weeks in the sort of mid to high 40% range. So look, that market in terms of property values is doing reasonably well. But obviously with auctions, it's not really keeping pace with Sydney.
Well, speaking of Sydney, let's have a look at the sub-regions of Sydney and see what we can see there. City and inner south, good numbers there with a clearance rate of 87.8%, Kevin.
Yes, look, that's right. I think one thing when we look at the sub-regions this week is there were 6 of them, I think, failed to achieve 10 results, which is really what we need to draw any firm conclusions. But, City and inner south are, one of the busier sub-regions and a really, really strong clearance rate. We haven't seen one in the high 80s for a little while.
Yeah, that's a big clearance rate out of Sydney. We're likely to see a fairly big drop in that if we've got a number of auctions that haven't been reported, Kevin.
Well, look, we will see an adjustment down, but the observation I'd make is there were 48 auctions and we got 41 results. So in a low volume weekend, we've actually got a very strong collection rate.
Very good. Okay, well, let's have a look at the top sale out of Sydney. It was, as I said at the top of the show, it's in Elizabeth Bay. This one was Unit 35 at 93 Elizabeth Bay Road, Elizabeth Bay. 4,175,000 sold by Ray White, Elizabeth Bay, Nick and Scott. Lovely property, this one. Have a look at those views, Kevin.
Oh, look, this is a fantastic property. So this is the second week in a row where a unit in Elizabeth Bay has topped the weekend auction sales, and second week for Ray White as well. Look, this property, as you mentioned, got spectacular views over Rushcutter Bay. It's in a sort of secure development, which has got an 8,000 square metre site area with 150 metres of frontage directly onto Rushcutters Bay. So this is really quite a spectacular development. And this unit is on the top floor of that development with arguably the best views in the whole the whole complex.
That was our top sale in the country. Interesting to note, I think probably the first time since I've been doing this show that we're seeing the second top sale coming out of Brisbane. We'll show you that property in just a moment. Before we do, let's have a look at the Melbourne sub-regions. Kev, I've got to say, northwest, is that a bit of a concern? I mean, reasonably good auction numbers and a clearance rate nowhere near what we're seeing in, say, inner east.
Yeah, look, I think in the northwest, I mean that's an area which covers a significant number of sort of outer growth suburbs. So, generally speaking, the property that is brought to market for auction there is sort of more homogenous than perhaps in some of the inner areas and somewhere like the Mornington Peninsula. So, look, that clearance rate's still nothing to be ashamed of in the mid-60s. That's not a bad result. And as I said before, our collection rate has actually been pretty high on a low volume weekend. So I wouldn't imagine that would adjust terribly much downwards on the final analysis.
I suppose when you compare it with the West at 57 auctions and a clearance of 55.8%, that's probably a more concern.
Oh, look, I mean, the thing is, out in the West, it's a very, very big region. It covers a significant area of outer suburbs, which are the sort of commuter belt. And again, the types of properties there would be of a more homogenous housing stock, possibly aimed, at a significant number of investors who, as we've discussed before, are probably not as active in the market as they have been because of lending restrictions.
Top sale out of Melbourne is in Elwood, 69 Ruskin Street at Elwood. This one's sold by Hocking Stewart, John Manning and Christine Lewis, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-car. Beautiful contemporary Edwardian in a really great location too, Kev.
Oh, look, it certainly is. It's just south of the St Kilda Botanical Gardens. It's no distance to the beach. It's only a few kilometres south of Melbourne. This is a highly sought after area. This is a property which takes up most of the block. It's a fairly modest sized block, 370 odd square metres. But it's been beautifully renovated with, as you often see with a building of this age, a much more modern extension with open plan living and kitchen.
Stay with us, a lot more to come. We'll come back in just a moment and we'll take you inside the top Brisbane sale, which in fact was the second top sale in Australia. We've got the worm to come, and we'll tell you about a sale over 2 lots, 2 houses in Adelaide that took out the top sale in that capital city. Back in just a moment.
Point your clients in the right direction with our range of directional signage. With a variety of options, we have a pointer board for every situation. Made with quality, durable materials, they're built to withstand our varying weather.
And as we come back to the show, Kevin Brogan from CoreLogic is with us. Kevin, let's have a look at our top Brisbane sale. And as I said, this was the second top sale in the country. A nice Spanish Mission masterpiece on 1,712 square metres. This one in Adelaide Street East in Clayfield, sold by Ray White New Farm for $2.8 million. A lovely, a very time or a great period home, Kevin, on a good sized block of land.
Oh, absolutely. So this property is meticulously cared for and presented, built in the 1920s, as you say, in the Spanish Mission Missions style. That's a huge block. It's only 7 kilometres northeast of the centre of Brisbane. So it's highly sought after as a locality. Median house price there is about $1.25 million. But obviously this is a standout, a much bigger than usual land holding, and a really quite spectacular larger dwelling.
We'll tell you about the top sale in Adelaide in just a moment. Before we do, there were 2 sales neck and neck out of the Canberra market, 133 Badimara Street in Fisher, and also 113. You can help me with the pronunciation on this one, mate, in Franklin.
Ujuru Avenue in Franklin. Look, I've had a look at these sales, and I feel that the Badimara Street in Fisher isn't a reliable record. That street is recorded, with sales in the sort of mid to high 600s, and I think that the result that's been collected there isn't accurate. The Ujuru Avenue, that's a 2011 built home. It's well over 300 square metres of building area, 290 of living area. It's a spectacular home, but it looks to me like it's a bit of a blank canvas for anybody who wants to take out the Bobcat and do a bit of landscaping. It's 10 kilometres north of Brisbane.
North of the city,
sorry,
not in
north
Brisbane.
Of Canberra, beg your pardon.
That's all right.
And it's it really is a spectacular home, $1,085,000.
Okay, well, let's go to the top Adelaide sale, and this is actually 2 houses over 2 lots. I think this has some commercial takeout on this one, 1.4 million, just over 1.4 million, sold by Bell Property.
Yes, look, this one, Kevin, was listed as a residential property. There's a 3-bedroom home on one lot, and then there are 3 1-bedroom units on the other. The total land holding is about 1,700 square metres. Now, it has existing use rights as a residential property, but it is actually zoned light industrial, and there are some adjacent light industrial uses, although there is mixed use in the area.
Yeah.
Having looked at this, really the sale price at 1.4 is reflective of that development potential, whether immediate or at some point in the future. And I'm reading this as a sale for a commercial development site.
Yeah, fair enough too. Just before I let you go, I want to bring the worm up, and we can see it's continuing its climb. I ran a bit of a ruler over this too before we came on air here, and I noticed we're at a point we've only reached around about 7 or 8 times in the last 10 years. So if the market continues to climb like this, we're getting into some pretty good territory, Kevin.
Yeah, look, there's no doubt that confidence has returned to buyers in the market, as you mentioned in your introduction. And we've had announcements this week which are going to help with that, although the second cut in interest rates is a sort of mixed news in terms of it speaks perhaps to wider issues with the economy. But I mean, in the housing sector, that is going to enable purchasers to increase their borrowing capacity. APRA has now reduced that serviceability requirement, which was at effectively 7.25%, to allow lenders more latitude, up to 2.5% or at least 2.5% above the mortgage rate they're lending at. So that also is perhaps going to act as a boost to the market. But I think we also just need to be aware that lenders are moving away from assumed household expenditure. They're delving far more deeply into household expenditure, which means that it is still quite challenging to get mortgage approval. So I think, Sydney and Melbourne, where the economies are really strong, I think we're going to see continued strength in these numbers. In other areas, it will depend on both population growth and employment opportunity, as well as the lending landscape.
Kevin Brogan, thank you very much. Kevin, of course, from CoreLogic, and Kevin gives us his take on the weekend market activity every Monday, and then he'll rejoin us on Friday with the final numbers from the full week. Kevin, always great talking to you, my friend, and we'll look forward to catching up with you again on Friday.
Thanks very much, Kevin.